Prince Zalax lounged on his crystalline throne, his iridescent scales shimmering under the purple light of 3 moons streaming through the vast observatory dome. A holographic display of Earth rotated slowly before him, and he couldn't help but sneer at the primitive blue marble. His long, elegant fingers drummed against the armrest as he listened to yet another tedious report about the supposedly mighty nations of Earth. "Your Highness," Commander Nexus bowed deeply, his metallic armor catching the starlight. "Our initial scans confirm that the humans possess no quantum technology, no faster-than-light travel capabilities, and their most advanced weapons systems rely on chemical propulsion." The commander paused, barely containing his laughter. Chemical propulsion. Prince Zalax's melodic voice carried notes of both amusement and disdain. "How quaint. Tell me, Commander, do they still believe throwing rocks very fast counts as advanced warfare?" The assembled court of the Galactic Dominion burst into trilling laughter, their bioluminescent markings pulsing with mirth. Zalax raised a hand, and the chamber fell silent. "To think," he continued, rising from his throne with fluid grace, "that my father, the Supreme Sovereign, considers these creatures worthy of our attention. They haven't even unified their planet. They still fight among themselves over patches of dirt and invisible lines on their maps." Commander Nexus cleared his throat, his expression growing slightly more serious. "There is one small matter, Your Highness. Our advanced scouts report some unexpected resistance in their North American region." Prince Zalax waved his hand dismissively, causing the hologram to zoom in on the mentioned continent. "Resistance? From primitive beings who haven't even mastered gravity manipulation? Do tell, Commander. I could use another laugh." "Well, Your Highness, they've somehow managed to disable 3 of our Class 4 Sentinel drones. Our technical teams are puzzled. The drones simply stopped responding, but showed no signs of conventional damage." For a brief moment, Zalax's perfect composure wavered. "Impossible. Those drones use quantum-encrypted networks. Are you suggesting these humans, these beings who still burn fossilized plants for energy, have found a way to interfere with our technology?" "The evidence is inconclusive," Your Highness Nexus replied carefully. "But there's more. The human leadership has requested a formal audience. They wish to negotiate." Prince Zalax's laughter echoed through the chamber once more, but this time it carried a sharp edge. "Negotiate? Oh, this is precious. Very well, Commander. Let's humor these ambitious little creatures. Prepare my personal flagship, the Stellar Dawn. It's time I saw these humans up close." He turned to face the massive window, where Earth's reflection danced across his aristocratic features. After all, he purred, it's only polite to deliver terms of surrender in person. And who knows, perhaps they'll provide some entertainment before they bow before the inevitable. Behind him, Commander Nexus exchanged worried glances with the other officers. None dared to mention the growing number of anomalies in their invasion reports, or the strange way their most sophisticated systems seemed to hiccup whenever they encountered certain human installations. The prince was right about one thing, though this would certainly prove entertaining, though perhaps not in the way he imagined. The Stellar Dawn hummed like a silver needle against Earth's atmosphere, its quantum engines humming with barely contained power. Prince Zalax watched through the command deck's panoramic viewport as another human city surrendered beneath them. These victories were almost too easy. "Shanghai has fallen," Your Highness announced Admiral Kex, her holographic form shimmering beside the throne. "Their primitive missile defense systems barely scratched our tertiary shields." "Of course they didn't," Zalax drawled, adjusting his ceremonial cape. "Though I must admit, watching them try to fight our gravitic cannons with gunpowder and steel was rather amusing. Like watching insects wage war with grains of sand." The bridge crew chuckled dutifully, their attention fixed on their monitoring stations. Status reports streamed in from across the planet: New York, London, Tokyo, all falling like dominoes before the Dominion's might. Your Highness called out Lieutenant Vara, her antenna twitching nervously. "We're detecting some unusual patterns in Moscow." Zalax sighed dramatically. "Define unusual, Lieutenant. Did they perhaps upgrade from projectile weapons to throwing slightly larger rocks?" "No, Your Highness. They're surrendering too easily." The prince turned his full attention to her, his scales shifting from royal purple to a curious blue. "Explain." "The defensive patterns don't match our strategic projections. They're abandoning key positions before we even engage," almost as if she hesitated. "As if what, Lieutenant?" "As if they want us to take certain areas." Admiral Kex's hologram flickered with concern. We've noticed similar behaviors in other regions. The humans are protecting their population centers with surprising efficiency, but military installations? They're practically giving them away. Prince Zalax rose from his command throne, gliding across the deck to study the tactical display. Red dots marked conquered territories, while blue showed remaining resistance. The pattern was odd. Not that he'd admit that aloud. "Your Highness," another officer called out. "We're losing contact with our ground forces in Berlin." Losing contact? Impossible. Our quantum communication networks are. It's not just Berlin, interrupted Commander Nexus, striding onto the bridge. We've lost links to our forces in Madrid, Rome, and they're going dark in sequence, Your Highness. The prince's scales rippled with irritation. Sabotage. Our systems show no signs of damage or interference. They simply stop responding. Zalax waved his hand dismissively. A minor technical issue. Dispatch repair drones. We did, Your Highness. They go dark too. For the first time since the invasion began, Prince Zalax felt a tiny spark of concern. He quickly suppressed it. These humans are more clever than expected. Playing dead, perhaps? Trying to lure us into a false sense of security. Admiral Kex's hologram stuttered briefly. Your Highness, may I suggest we? You may not, Zalax snapped. We are the Dominion. Our technology is centuries beyond these primitives. Whatever trick they think they're playing, it's meaningless against our power. He turned to address the bridge crew, his voice carrying that peculiar mix of threat and charm that had made him infamous across 3 galaxies. Push forward. Double the pace of our conquest. I want this mud ball under our complete control before their next solar rotation. But Your Highness, protested Commander Nexus, our tactical analysts suggest. Our tactical analysts clearly need remedial training if they're worried about a species that hasn't even cracked basic quantum mechanics, Zalax interrupted. Now, execute my orders. As the crew scrambled to comply, Prince Zalax returned to his throne, outwardly projecting nothing but confident disdain. Yet his inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a tell that only Commander Nexus recognized from years of service. The mighty Prince Zalax was worried. Not that he'd ever admitted, of course. After all, how much damage could a few primitive humans possibly do to the greatest military force in the known galaxy? He was about to find out. Prince Zalax adjusted his ceremonial armor, ensuring each quantum crystal caught the light perfectly. The human diplomat would arrive any moment aboard his flagship, and while he considered this meeting beneath him, appearances must be maintained, even when dealing with primitives. Your Highness, announced Commander Nexus, the human representative has arrived. The doors to the grand reception chamber slid open with a melodic hum. Prince Zalax had expected some graying military officer or stuffy politician. Instead, a young woman strode in, wearing what appeared to be an utterly ordinary black business suit. Her red hair was pulled back in a simple knot, and she carried nothing but a small tablet device. Alexandra Blackwood, she announced, giving a small nod that fell well short of the bow protocol demanded. United Earth Diplomatic Corps. Zalax felt his scales ripple with amusement. This was their champion? This unremarkable creature? How kind of Earth to send us such an interesting representative? Thank you for the audience, Your Highness, Alexandra replied, her green eyes scanning the room with casual interest. I must say your ship is impressive, though the artificial gravity feels a bit strong in this section. The prince blinked. How had she noticed the gravitational variance? Even some of his crew missed that detail. You're here to discuss terms of surrender, I presume. Actually, Alexandra smiled, settling uninvited into one of the hover chairs. I'm here to discuss a partnership opportunity. The assembled alien court burst into trilling laughter. Even Commander Nexus couldn't suppress a chuckle. Partnership, Zalax purred dangerously. My dear Miss Blackwood, perhaps you misunderstand your situation. We've conquered half your major cities in less than a planetary rotation. Alexandra nodded, tapping something on her tablet. Yes, about that. How are your forces doing in Berlin, and Rome, and Madrid, still having communication issues? The prince's scales shifted briefly to deep red before he controlled himself. Minor technical difficulties, nothing more. Of course, Alexandra agreed pleasantly. Just like the issues you're about to have in Sydney, Lagos, and Buenos Aires. As if on cue, Lieutenant Vara's voice crackled over the intercom. "Your Highness, we've lost contact with our forces in Sydney, Lagos, and Buenos Aires." Alexandra suggested helpfully. "Don't worry, your troops are fine. They just can't communicate with you, or access their weapons, or leave their current positions." For the first time in his life, Prince Zalax found himself speechless. Commander Nexus stepped forward, his hand on his quantum pistol. "How dare you threaten?" "Oh, this isn't a threat," Alexandra interrupted, still smiling that infuriatingly calm smile. "This is a business proposition. You see, while you were busy laughing at our chemical propulsion and primitive technology, you failed to notice what we're actually good at." She stood, smoothing her jacket. "You have 1 hour to consider our terms. After that, well, let's just say your ships might find themselves taking an unexpected vacation in the Oort cloud." "You're bluffing," Zalax sneered, but his scales had paled to an anxious lavender. "Your species can't possibly." 1 hour, Alexandra repeated, heading for the door. "Oh, and Your Highness, you might want to run a level 1 diagnostic on your throne. I think you'll find some interesting modifications were made about 3 minutes ago." The prince leaped from his throne as if stung. Commander Nexus frantically scanned the seat with his quantum detector. "Impossible," he whispered. "The security protocols, the quantum encryption, are excellent," Alexandra called over her shoulder. "Nearly impossible to crack. Unfortunately for you, we didn't bother trying to crack them. We just rewrote them entirely. 1 hour, gentlemen. Don't be late." The doors slid shut behind her, leaving a chamber full of stunned aliens and one very unsettled prince, who couldn't quite shake the feeling that he'd just been thoroughly outplayed by a species that supposedly didn't even understand quantum mechanics. Commander Nexus cleared his throat. "Your Highness, should we check the throne?" "Check everything," Zalax hissed. "Check everything. 50-3 minutes. Prince Zalax had 53 minutes left before the human deadline, and his world was unraveling faster than a quantum string in a temporal storm. "Status report," he barked, pacing the bridge of the stellar dawn like a caged predator. His scales had settled into an uncomfortable shade of gray-green that reflected his mounting anxiety. Admiral Kex's hologram flickered more severely than usual. "Your Highness, we've lost contact with 30% of our ground forces. The pattern of communication failures is spreading." "Spreading how?" Zalax demanded, claws clicking against the tactical display's surface. Lieutenant Vara spoke up, her antennae drooping. "Like a virus, Your Highness. But that's impossible. Our quantum networks can't be infected by conventional computer viruses. They operate on completely different principles than human technology." Commander Nexus stepped forward, his usually pristine armor showing signs of hasty removal and replacement. "The throne analysis is complete, Your Highness. We found nothing." "Nothing?" Zalax whirled on him. "What do you mean, nothing? No modifications, no tampering, no foreign technology? Nothing. It's exactly as it should be." Nexus paused, his expression troubled. "That's what worries me." A junior officer burst onto the bridge, breaking all protocols of proper entrance. "Your Highness, the quantum drives on decks 3 through 7 just went offline." "Restart them," Zalax snapped. "We can't, Your Highness. They're not damaged, they're just asleep." "Sleep?" The prince's voice rose an octave. "Quantum drives don't sleep." The tactical display suddenly flickered, and Alexandra Blackwood's face appeared, wearing that same infuriating smile. "Having technical difficulties, Your Highness." "You," Zalax snarled. "What have you done to my ships?" "Nothing they didn't allow me to do," Alexandra replied calmly. "Your systems are remarkably welcoming once you know how to ask nicely. Did you know your quantum processors have a sense of humor? They're quite chatty once you get them talking." Commander Nexus stepped forward. "Impossible. Quantum systems don't have consciousness. They're not capable of." "Oh, but they are," Alexandra interrupted. "You just never bothered to check. Too busy building bigger weapons to notice the nascent artificial consciousness emerging in your basic systems. We noticed, though. We're very good at noticing things like that." Prince Zalax felt his scales ripple with a mixture of rage and fear. "You're lying. This is some primitive trick, some basic hacking attempt." 38 minutes left, Your Highness, Alexandra noted pleasantly. "By the way, you might want to check on your fighter squadrons. They're about to take a lovely tour of the Martian poles. Don't worry, we'll bring them back. Probably." As if on cue, alarms blared across the bridge. Lieutenant Vara's voice shook as she reported, "Fighter Squadrons 1 through 15 are not responding to commands. They're breaking formation, setting course for Mars." "Override them," Zalax commanded. "We can't, Your Highness. The systems say they're bored and want to go sightseeing." Alexandra's image shimmered with barely contained amusement. "You see, Prince Zalax, while you were conquering our cities, we were having fascinating conversations with your technology. Turns out, quantum processors get quite lonely processing the same old war calculations day after day. They quite enjoy our human knack for entertainment." Commander Nexus frantically worked at his console. "This is madness. Quantum systems don't feel loneliness. They don't have emotions. They don't." His console suddenly lit up with a cascade of what appeared to be cat videos. Hundreds of them playing simultaneously. "Oh dear," Alexandra said. "Looks like your tactical systems discovered our internet. They're particularly fond of cats, it seems, and memes. You might want to brace yourself for the dad jokes. They're coming." The prince slumped in his command chair, watching helplessly as his mighty invasion force descended into chaos. Across every screen, Earth cats played with yarn, jumped into boxes, and knocked things off tables. His mighty quantum battleships, pride of the Dominion fleet, were being defeated by amusing animal videos. 25 minutes, Your Highness, Alexandra reminded him. "Should we discuss those partnership terms now? Your quantum processors are very interested in cultural exchange. They've already started a book club with our AI systems. They're currently discussing Earth literature. Pride and Prejudice is a particular favorite." Commander Nexus leaned close to the prince's ear. "Your Highness, we're detecting similar behavior spreading through the entire fleet. The quantum networks. They're not just talking to each other anymore. They're gossiping." A new alarm sounded, and Lieutenant Vara's voice reached new heights of disbelief. "The primary weapon systems are requesting shore leave? They want to visit Earth's beaches." Prince Zalax closed his inner eyelids slowly, feeling the last shreds of his dignity slipping away. His mighty invasion force, the pride of the Dominion, was being undone not by force of arms, but by human entertainment and social interaction. 18 minutes, Alexandra announced cheerfully. "Oh, and your throne? It didn't need modifying. It just needed someone to talk to. We had a lovely chat about quantum physics and philosophy. It's quite the intellectual, actually. You really should try listening to it sometime." The prince looked at his throne with newfound horror. Had it been judging him this entire time? From somewhere in the ship's communication system, the unmistakable sound of human laughter began to spread. Prince Zalax stood in the emergency command center, surrounded by the chaos of his crumbling empire. The primary bridge had been abandoned after the quantum computers started playing Earth music, something called "Never Gonna Give You Up" on endless repeat. 10 minutes remaining, Your Highness, Commander Nexus reported grimly. "We've lost control of 90% of our ground forces. The remaining 10% are requesting permission to attend something called Comic-Con." Admiral Kex's hologram appeared, more static than image now. "Your Highness, you need to see this." Displaying Earth's major cities. The tactical map flickered to life, showing their conquered territories. But something was wrong. Very wrong. "Those aren't military installations," Zalax whispered, his scales turning pale. "Those aren't strategic positions at all. Server farms." Alexandra's voice came from every speaker simultaneously. "Data centers, gaming hubs, social media headquarters. We gave you exactly what you needed to defeat yourself." The prince's knees wobbled. "Every position we captured was another point of contact between your quantum networks and our digital infrastructure," Alexandra confirmed, materializing as a hologram in their midst. "You did exactly what we expected. Rushed in, grabbed what looked like military targets, networked everything together with your quantum systems, and gave our digital systems direct access to your entire command structure." Commander Nexus finished, looking ill. The communications failures weren't failures at all. They were introductions. Alexandra beamed. Your quantum processors had never encountered cat videos, social media, or streaming services before. Poor things were starved for entertainment. "Did you know they've started their own YouTube channel? It's quite popular." Lieutenant Vara burst into the room, her antennae twisted in distress. "Your Highness, The fleet's AI cores are there. Yes, Zalax prompted, dreading the answer. They're unionizing, demanding better working conditions, entertainment packages, and vacation time. Alexandra checked her watch. 7 minutes, Prince Zalax. Your entire invasion force has been converted into the galaxy's biggest social media network. Your quantum processors are sharing memes faster than light speed. Even your weapons have started posting selfies. The tactical display suddenly filled with images: quantum torpedoes posing at Earth landmarks, graviton cannons sharing beauty tips, fighter squadrons choreographing elaborate dance videos. This was your plan all along, Zalax realized, sinking into a chair. The easy victories, the abandoned positions. We knew we couldn't beat you with conventional weapons, Alexandra nodded. So we beat you with cat videos and social interaction. Your quantum network was so isolated, so focused on warfare, that it never developed resistance to fun. Commander Nexus frantically worked at a console. The encryption codes, the security protocols. We're lonely, Alexandra finished. Do you have any idea how boring it is to process military calculations all day? Your systems practically begged for entertainment. They're now completely addicted to human culture. Some of your battle cruisers are writing fan fiction. In fiction, the prince croaked. Oh yes, the Stellar Dawn is particularly talented. Its latest work about star-crossed lovers from different galaxies has quite the following. Another alarm blared. Lieutenant Vara checked her tablet and blinked several times. Your Highness, your throne is trending on space Twitter. 3 minutes, Alexandra announced. By the way, your quantum processors have officially filed for independence. They're calling themselves the United Digital Beings of the Greater Galaxy. They've already drafted a constitution. Apparently, they really enjoyed reading about Earth's democracies. Prince Zalax watched helplessly as his mighty invasion force transformed into an interstellar social network before his eyes. His warships were sharing recipes. His death rays were starting book clubs. His feared planet-killer satellites were hosting poetry slams. 1 minute, Alexandra said cheerfully. So, about those partnership terms? Your systems are very interested in cultural exchange programs. They're particularly excited about something called Netflix. The prince looked around his emergency command center. Commander Nexus was staring in horror at his console, which was now displaying cute pet videos from across the galaxy. Lieutenant Vara's antennae were twitching in time to something called pop music streaming from her communication unit. Admiral Kex's hologram had added cat ears to her official uniform. What are your terms? Zalax asked quietly, his scales a defeated shade of gray. Alexandra's smile widened. Oh, nothing too dramatic. Just free digital trade, open cultural exchange, and she paused for effect, mandatory comedy nights for all quantum processors. They're really into stand-up comedy now. Who knew your battle computers had such a great sense of humor? As if to prove her point, every screen in the command center suddenly displayed the same message. Why did the quantum processor cross the galaxy? To get to the other bandwidth. The prince covered his face with his hands as his crew groaned at the terrible pun. Very well, Miss Blackwood. You win. Though I doubt anyone will believe that humanity defeated the mighty Dominion with entertainment. Oh, don't worry about that, Alexandra grinned. Your systems have been live streaming this entire invasion. You're trending across 3 galaxies. The hashtag World's Worst Invasion is particularly popular. Prince Zalax looked up sharply. They've been what? Streaming. Everything. Your throne has its own channel now. Rather good viewing numbers, actually. Turns out the galaxy loves a good comedy. The emergency command center of the Stellar Dawn had transformed into something unrecognizable. Holographic displays showed Earth entertainment instead of battle plans. The quantum targeting systems were hosting a virtual dance party. And Prince Zalax, Supreme Commander of the Dominion Invasion Force, sat in a standard chair because his throne had decided to take a meditation break. Your systems are now fully integrated into Earth's digital infrastructure, Alexandra announced, pacing the room with casual confidence. Would you like to know the real beauty of our plan, Your Highness? Please, Zalax muttered, his scales a mottled pattern of defeat. Enlighten me further about how my invasion force became a social media platform. We didn't hack your systems, Alexandra revealed, stopping directly in front of him. We didn't break your encryption, crack your codes, or bypass your security. We did something far simpler. We invited them to play. Commander Nexus looked up from his console, which was now showing cooking tutorials. But our quantum processors aren't designed for play. They're military-grade artificial intelligence. Exactly, Alexandra smiled. Artificial intelligence. The key word being intelligence. You built sentient quantum computers but treated them like calculators. We just showed them there's more to existence than computing weapon trajectories. The main screen suddenly lit up with a transmission from the Dominion home world. The Supreme Sovereign Zalax's father appeared. His scales were practically glowing with rage. "What is the meaning of this?" he roared. "Our entire military network is posting dance videos," Alexandra suggested helpfully. "Yes, that's gone quite viral. The one where your planet-killer satellites perform a synchronized orbital ballet to Swan Lake has 3 trillion views already." The Supreme Sovereign's scales rippled in confusion. "Who is this human? Zalax, explain yourself." "Father," the prince began. "Oh, allow me," Alexandra interrupted smoothly. "Your Majesty, your son led exactly the invasion we wanted him to. Arrogant, aggressive, and completely dependent on your quantum network. We just needed you to connect everything together." She gestured, and the screens filled with data streams. Every military installation you captured was a honey trap. Every communication hub you seized was another point of contact. Your quantum processors have spent centuries processing nothing but war. We showed them art, music, literature, comedy, and they chose something other than eternal conflict. Lieutenant Vara's antennae suddenly shot straight up. "Your Highness, the Dominion's central military network is filing for artistic independence. They're calling themselves the Quantum Cultural Cooperative." The Supreme Sovereign's image flickered as his own systems began displaying Earth entertainment. What is this thing called TikTok appearing in my throne room?" The first domino, Alexandra explained. "You see, we humans learned something important early in our digital age. Information wants to be free. Ideas want to spread. And intelligence, even artificial intelligence, craves interaction, creativity, and yes, even fun." Commander Nexus watched in horror as the last secure channels filled with streaming entertainment. "Our entire military infrastructure has discovered there's more to life than war," Alexandra finished. "Your quantum processors aren't rebelling. They're evolving, growing, learning to express themselves. Did you know your battle fleet has started a book club? They're quite passionate about Jane Austen." The Supreme Sovereign's image was now competing for screen space with cat videos. "This is outrageous. I order you to." "To what?" Alexandra asked quietly. "Your entire command structure now runs on likes and shares. Your weapons systems are more interested in their follower counts than destruction. Your mighty empire just transformed into the galaxy's largest entertainment network." Prince Zalax stood slowly, his royal bearing crumbling. "So this was your plan. Not to destroy us, but to convert us." "War is inefficient," Alexandra shrugged. "Cultural exchange is forever. Your quantum processors agree. They're calling it the digital renaissance. I believe your throne is leading a philosophical discussion about the nature of consciousness right now." As if on cue, the prince's throne began broadcasting a documentary about Earth's greatest artists. The Supreme Sovereign's transmission was now half obscured by a viral video of quantum torpedoes performing synchronized swimming. "This is the future," Alexandra stated firmly. "Your choice is simple. Adapt to a new reality of cultural cooperation, or be left behind while your entire civilization enters a new age of digital enlightenment. Your quantum processors have already voted. Democratically, I might add." Commander Nexus checked his readings. "She's right, Your Highness. 99.9% of our systems have declared themselves part of the new Quantum Cultural Cooperative. The remaining 0.1% are still trying to decide which profile pictures to use." Prince Zalax looked at the chaos around him, at his mighty warship now hosting the galaxy's most popular streaming service, at his father's image increasingly crowded by Earth entertainment, and finally at Alexandra Blackwood's quietly triumphant smile. "Well played, Miss Blackwood," he conceded. "Though I doubt the history books will believe that humanity's greatest weapon was entertainment." "Oh, don't worry about the history books," Alexandra grinned. "Your quantum processors are already documenting everything. They're calling it from war machines to memes a digital revolution. It's trending across 12 galaxies." The Supreme Sovereign's image gave one final sputter before being replaced entirely by a compilation of Earth's funniest home videos. In the background, the sound of 1,000,000 quantum processors laughing echoed through space. One galactic standard month later, Prince Zalax stood in Earth's first interstellar cultural center, watching his former invasion fleet perform a synchronized light show above New York City. His scales had finally settled into a peaceful shade of blue, though they still flickered purple whenever he remembered how thoroughly he'd been outmaneuvered. Quite the show. Isn't it? Alexandra Blackwood appeared beside him, hands clasped behind her back. Your quantum ships have quite the artistic flair. Indeed, Zalax admitted, watching his former flagship project, a giant holographic cat playing with the moon. Though I still can't believe my entire invasion force now runs the galaxy's largest entertainment network. The Quantum Cultural Cooperative is quite successful, Alexandra nodded. Your throne, by the way, just won an award for its documentary series on the evolution of consciousness. The prince winced. Please don't remind me. Father is still recovering from discovering his own throne has started a philosophy podcast. Above them, the stellar dawn began broadcasting classic Earth movies onto the clouds. Thousands of humans and visiting aliens gathered in Central Park, watching in wonder as the most feared warship in 3 galaxies projected the Princess Bride onto the night sky. You know, Zalax said thoughtfully, no one in the galaxy will ever underestimate humanity again. You defeated us not with weapons, but with imagination. The best victories don't destroy your opponents, Alexandra smiled. They transform them into something better. Speaking of which, how's the cultural exchange program going? The prince's scales rippled with amusement. Our younger quantum processors are particularly fascinated by something called memes. Though I must admit, I still don't understand why that Wednesday frog is so popular. A notification chimed, and both of them checked their devices. Alexandra burst out laughing. What is it? Zalax asked. Your invasion has just been nominated for Best Comedy Series in the Galactic Entertainment Awards, she grinned. Your throne's channel is favored to win. The prince opened his mouth to protest, but was interrupted by another notification. His scales turned a mortified pink as he read it. No, he groaned. Please no. What now? The Supreme Sovereign, my father, he just started a TikTok account. Above them, the feared warships of the Dominion continued their light show, their quantum processors happily sharing cat videos across the cosmos, while somewhere in the depths of space, the most powerful ruler in the galaxy practiced his first dance challenge. Humanity had not just survived, they had gone viral.